A lot of times what I like to do when I'm studying a drummer is not just learn specific parts. What I like to do is try to almost like you're taking an aerial view of what's going on. And I try to look at the big picture ideas of what he's doing that makes his style his style. So I'm gonna give you 10 ways that you can dig in and begin to research him and sound more like Stewart Copeland in your playing. And don't use that to just sound like him and recreate him. What you wanna do is use that to inform what you do, because that's what he did. He had a rich history of studying world rhythms, and he used those to inform his playing with one of the biggest bands in the world. And that's what we wanna do in our playing, is just use him to inform us and to encourage us to push ourselves. So the first thing is, some of these will seem obvious and some of them not so obvious, but the first thing that we see recurring in his playing is you might as well forget about one. Just avoid it, like completely lay it to the side. He emphasizes other beats besides one. Whenever he comes out of drum fills, many times he'll come out on 4, he'll come out on the upbeat of 4. When he makes specific drum grooves, I'm thinking about, I think it's King of Pain, as well as, if you look at one of the bigger hits, Roxanne, he takes a very simple beat and displaces that for those first 2 kick drums to the and the 2, and what you have is you have a typical rock beat that now doesn't sound so typical because he's avoiding one. His entrances avoid one. So again, I can point out time and time again, avoid one when you're playing in the style of Stewart Copeland, or you're playing police tunes, or you're just wanting to implement that into your playing. The second thing that I can emphasize for you is, and it's in the same vein of avoiding one, but your drum fills. And I can point to, Demolition Man, Regatta de Blanc, the King of Pain. Many times you see him starting the drum fills in the middle of a measure or a phrase, and then playing over the bar line into the next measure and ending that drum fill before the downbeat. In other words, avoiding one. So he dances around one with the drum fills as well. And that's why so much of their music it's confusing trying to figure out where one is. That's the reason. He's avoiding it, and he's using his drum fills to play over the bar line to help him do that. And the third thing that really will help you with the first 2 is study reggae. Essentially, study into the deep styles of reggae, Jamaica, those world rhythms, burro, and Jamaican ska, Jamaican boogie. All of those styles have a different feel to them. Nyabingi, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. All of those styles have a different feel to them, and they avoid one. And so that's a lot of where his emphasis came, that and studying other world rhythms. So study other styles of music like reggae, other world rhythms that don't emphasize one as much as Western music does. The fourth way that you can begin to dig into the style of Stewart Copeland, sound like Stewart Copeland, is Stewart has a tendency to push the beat. And I think that's a big personality type of a thing. Having watched interviews and live clips, our personality comes out in our playing. So with Stewart's playing, he's always playing on top of the beat. He's got that extra energy. So it's like the beat's here and he's just right above that. Now, there's times when you can point out that he did lay back on that beat. But for the most part, many of his parts are pushing that beat, really playing on top of things. The fifth thing is going back to that reggae, avoiding one. Get creative with your kick drum placement, specifically emphasizing 2 and 4. Just like in a lot of reggae grooves, a lot of early ska grooves, 2 and 4 is emphasized, but it's emphasized more with a kick drum and rim click than it is with a snare drum. And he brings that into their music, so get comfortable emphasizing 2 and 4 with your kick drum instead of with your snare drum. Now the 6th thing has to do with his setup and his tuning. He liked to use smaller drums, he liked to use smaller cymbals, I think it was like 13-inch hats, and then tons of splash cymbals. And a lot of smaller drums, and then tuned up, pitched up way high to get that attack and that response. So just overall as like a tuning type of a thing, and your setup, if you kind of want to sound in that style, smaller cymbals, smaller drums, crank the tuning up, and you're going to kind of achieve that sound that he had. Number 7, lots of crossstick and lots of ride cymbal bell. Okay, so get just as comfortable playing crossstick as you do playing the backbeat of the snare. And this may seem simple, but it's those simple nuances that really bring out a style. He's a master of taking the simplistic and making it sound more than it is, and this is one of those ways that he does that. So utilizing crossstick, which is not a normal sound that you hear in rock music, and utilizing a lot of ride cymbal bell. Which really, there wasn't a lot of ride cymbal bell happening in punk rock of the time. There was more in like the glam rock, stadium rock, but there wasn't a ton of like he used it. But in world rhythms, you hear a ton of bell being used. In early ska music, you hear a ton of bell being used on the hi-hat. You hear it in Afro-Cuban, all over the world rhythms, the bell is emphasized because they're playing those bells. And so he brought that over into the rock arena. So lots of cross stick, lots of ride cymbal bell. The 8th thing I can encourage you to do is make the old new, or get creative with the things that you already know. So let's take 3 different instances where he does this very, very well. Reggae de Blanc is a fantastic track. You want to hear some fantastic drumming, just go click on Reggae de Blanc right now, like stop, look it up, and listen to the intro to that. Sick intro on the drums. And when he settles into a groove, it's crazy. He settles into this halftime groove, but it's a full beat behind the rest of the band. And so it's a typical halftime, like it sounds like a typical halftime groove would sound. He's just moved it back 1 beat to where the snare's on 4 instead of the snare being on 3, etc. That's one example. Another example where you take the old and make it new is taking a 6/8 feel. So let's take Murder by Numbers, where he's playing this type of a pattern. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Usually when we play that, it's... And he does settle into that whenever Sting goes into the Murder by Numbers chorus. But until then, what does he do? He takes the old and makes it new by putting that kick drum on the 2, or on, as the downbeat, where the snare usually goes. So, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2. That's not overly complex. It's a very simple thing, and it just takes rearranging that. Another example is the groove to Roxanne. He takes this very simple rock groove, so what he did was he moved that kick drum just back 1/8 note. Same 2 notes, so now instead of 1 and, it's and 2. That's such a simple move, and yet it changes the feel of the whole song. And then, of course, they avoid 1 and do all the other things that Stewart does. Emphasize the hi-hat, all of those things, ride cymbal bell towards the end. All of those things he's doing. So he took something that's very, very familiar and then just moved one part of it. So it's not like you're learning a whole new skill set, it's reinventing the old. Sometimes we take the old and put it in a bag, when we should take it back out and go, how could I flip this on its head? How could I do it differently? So explore older rhythms and play them differently. We're getting towards the end here. The ninth thing is bring the hi-hat to the forefront. So there's many songs with the intro, it's just hi-hat and kick. Now, Walking on the Moon is a fantastic example of his excellent hi-hat work. And there's Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic. He brings the hi-hat to the forefront and really emphasizes that. And in a rock setting, that's not something that happens very often. We emphasize the kick, we emphasize the snare, but he's taking something old, the hi-hat, and again, he's going, no, I'm gonna make that the star of this part of the song. That's it. And that's what comes off is, man, you listen to those hi-hat patterns. It's so great how he's utilizing that hi-hat in a different way. And then the 10th thing is combining a couple others. Remember I said get used to using the cross stick, emphasize the hi-hat. Now, get used to doing those together. And again, I want to encourage you to go listen to the intro to Reggae de Blanc. And if you listen to the intro of that, there's some insane stick and hi-hat patterns that he's doing. And then if you go listen to other songs like Walking on the Moon, the sections after the choruses, there's some great interaction between the hi-hat and the cross stick. Now, albeit they use some delay in there, that's something that is evident across a lot of their recordings. They'll put delay, so sometimes his cross stick sounds like it more than it is. His hi-hat will sound like it's doing more than it is. But he takes those simple things and uses that to augment them. But get accustomed to doing simple patterns between the hi-hat and the snare, and that's gonna make it sound like so much more. So that's 10 different ways that I can come up with that you can sound more like Stewart Copeland, or help to achieve his sound in your playing, or use the concepts that he used in his playing and bring them to your playing, or the thought patterns. Those are important to me. Like, what's he doing there? Wow, that's just this basic rock groove, and he's playing it a beat behind. That's a basic kick drum pattern. He's playing it half a beat behind. That's a 4 on the floor pattern. He's playing that half a. It's such simple things that if we apply that to our own practice time and our playing, we can come up with some really cool things. So put down in the comments section if you have any additions that you would add to this list that you think are really fun about Stewart and his playing. Again, I encourage you to go study reggae, all world rhythms, use that to inform your playing, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Turn on post notifications. I don't want you to miss any of those. Share this with somebody you think it may help. Hit that thumbs up button if it helped you, and yeah, leave me a comment before you get out of here. Anyway, I'm gonna go listen to some Police now because now I want to.